Hello everyone. Art journaling for me is about the process. It is not about the finished product. And so in this series, I am doing art journaling in simple steps, and I'm using just sheets of paper. I don't care what it turns out to be. I just want to enjoy the process. And so I am going to show a few of the techniques that I use to make backgrounds and such. And one of my go-tos is scraping paint. I love the looks of just putting color on my background. And the fastest way to do it is to take a card of some sort, an old credit card, or a hotel room key. I get junk mail a lot, and they send those, they're cardboard sometimes, and sometimes they're real cards. But I use those laminated cards to do this. So don't use anything special. Use up that junk mail. And so I am just going to start out by taking some paint, dropping a little bit on my paper, and using that card to thin it out. The thinner it is, the quicker it dries. Easy way just to get some color on the page. You can wait for this to dry, or you can add another color. Let's add a blue. You have to do it pretty quickly. I think this paint is already dried. If you scrape the paint on top of wet paint, the two colors will blend together to make another color. If you wait for that acrylic paint to dry, you're going to add another color on top, which kind of obstructs the color beneath. So play around with that to get some different things going on there. Another thing to do, and I'm using sheets of paper just so that I can go to my next one without having to wait for it to dry. Just keep in mind, acrylic paint does stick together when it's wet. It's worse than glue. It's horrible. So you want to make sure that your pages are dry before you put them together like this. If they're wet, they will stick and you'll have to tear your pages apart. And since this was so thin, it is really dry to the touch now, and I can put anything on top of that. All right. So another way to add the paint is, I'm going to use this more sturdy. It's a gift card. I'm going to add paint directly. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to add paint directly to the card and scrape it off the card that way. And another way is I'm using this piece of plastic. A magazine came inside of it. And so I am just going to use that as a palette, put some paint on that, and dip my credit card into that paint and scrape it that way. That way I've got a smaller amount and it's more interesting. It gives a different effect. I am going to put some different colors down here so that I can do this more quickly. And some greenish teal and some purple. I'm getting paint everywhere. And some blue. So that way I can take a little bit of this color, then a little bit of that color, and really make an interesting multicolored background. See how fun that gets to be? I'm using a drop paper here so that I can go to the edges and not worry about getting paint everywhere. I like paint that goes over my edges. See how cool that is? I'm getting paint on the pages below, which is fine. This is more of a random art journaling practice. I don't have any idea what my page is going to look like when I start, and it's a nice surprise when I finish and I have this interesting page that I wasn't expecting. So I like the unexpected part of it. So that is the scraping paint. I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to use this long, it's an advertisement for something, I don't know, but it's laminated card. And I'm going to dip into all these colors and do that, which is fun too. They start to blend together after a while, but that little rainbow there is quite interesting to me. So, an easy way to get a lot of color on the page really quickly using a big card. There are other things that you can use to scrape paint. If you have a catalyst, it's pretty much a rubber. It's a rubber wedge. And let's put some more paint down here. It's the same principle. It moves the color, but they're expensive. It's the same, it does the same thing. No need to buy expensive tools when you've got just a credit card or a card that, a playing card would even work, that would work just as well. So don't spend the money if you don't need to. You can also use the spatulas from your kitchen. My rule is once it leaves the kitchen and goes into my craft room, it never goes back to the kitchen. Let me put a different color down here. This will give you smaller swipes, I guess is the word for it. If you use the curved edge. I know my spatulas, I don't use them enough and they start getting hard. So, and then you don't have to worry about your hands getting dirty in the paint. Here's a small one, same thing. You can use anything to scrape paint around. And another thing to scrape paint, I've got paint everywhere, is a palette knife. Let me put a little bit of yellow down here. Palette knives are just a little bit more, they're smaller and they're easier to get into smaller places. You can direct the paint exactly where you want it, just a little bit more. By just using the tip, you can get smaller lines, or you can use the whole back side of it and really scrape stuff down with it. Let me get a fresh page out here so you can see. You can smudge paint with it too. Or you can actually drop paint onto the paper and use the palette knife to thin it out. Spread it around. They're thinner lines. It's a smaller tool. All right. And one last thing that you can do with the credit card is just putting paint on the edge and making lines. kind of like a mark making tool. You can do this over other acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is wonderful. Once it dries, it is there. It's not going to move. So you can paint over it little details, and it blocks the color underneath it. So it's fun. It's fun just to do some fun, random things with. It is my go-to. When I need just a little bit of color on a page, I always grab my credit cards first. I don't have to clean up a brush. Obviously, I don't clean the credit card. It's got stuff all over it. And when it is got so much stuff on it, I just throw these away, and I always get new ones. But I use them for a very long time. This one is so scraped up, the paint on it is gone. So it's the fastest way to get a little bit of color on your page, little bit of cleanup, hardly any cleanup at all. I make sure my card is wet, and I've got a little box that I put them in, all the cards in, and they're there when I'm ready to scrape a little bit of paint. I know where to find it, and I use that a lot. Acrylic paint scraped onto your page. Thanks for watching.